All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pete and Cindy Show. I'm Cindy Allen. I'm the CEO of TradeForce Multiplier, which is a global trade consultancy service. I am brought to you today with the cooperation of the Global Trading Center and, of course, Simply Trade, where I host a Friday podcast called Simply Trade, Cindy's version. And today I am happy to be here with my panelists today for Simply Trade, the Pete and Cindy Show. And you have to say it really quick like that, the Pete and Cindy Show. So that's going to be our thing going forward. I am here with my friend, colleague, economist, customs house broker, global trade advisor, and infamous comedian on the side, as well as a hell of a dancer, I'm told, Pete Mento, who is the practice leader, global trade advisory at Baker Tilly. So good morning, Pete.
Morning. I don't know why we wouldn't call it the Cindy and Pete show. That makes more sense.
I don't know. I think Pete and Cindy just
don't
kind of
you
flows out
don't you go
of my mouth.
alphabetically on this kind of thing? Like first of all, and then ladies first. And I don't know. I mean, enough of my life is about me. But we'll go with whatever you want.
I think the Pete and Cindy Show.
10
I
years,
think
10 years of
I
couple counseling has made me a good compromiser.
yeah, I see that. I see that your wives have trained you well. I can see.
Not well enough. I'm single.
No, not well enough. Well, there you go, ladies. He's single, so give him a call. I was joking that Anik from Simply Trade has dubbed me the Taylor Swift of trade. And that's really how I came up with the name for our show, Simply Trade, Cindy's version. So I want to know, is there a nickname that the trade and the public at large needs to know about you, Pete?
There's a couple. I mean, there's a lot of people at companies like Flexport that have less than kind nicknames for me. So we probably won't use those. And of course, I mean, everyone calls me Uncle Pete. And that really started with one of my clients who would always call me Uncle Pete. And then they were at ICPA. And before you know it, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, everyone else started calling me Uncle Pete. But the way I look at it is, who would you want to have play you in a movie about your life? So
Ooh,
who would you pick, Cindy?
Sharon Stone.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. She's a hell of an actress too, so that's a good pick. I would think I would pick Jack Black to
Oh, yeah. He's funny. He's,
he is funny.
very, very comedian, but an actor and also a musician. He's multifaceted person, just like you are.
He had a great line once where he said, "What I lack in talent, I make up for with enthusiasm." And I've
Yes.
always held that close to my heart.
I like Sharon Stone because she's just ballsy.
She
And
is.
she is not afraid to be who she is. And I just love that about her. And plus, she's not bad looking. So, you always try to pick a better version of yourself in film. So she would be my version of
Good
me.
pick, Cindy. Good pick.
And about a foot taller than me. So, it's
You're
all
not
good.
short at all.
I'm five
She's not
two.
tall. Is
I'm
she six?
5'2".
Is
Yeah,
she
I think
6 feet
she's close
tall?
to 6 foot. Yeah, she is close to 6 foot.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I always wanted long legs. But anyway, enough about us. Enough about us. We're here to talk to global trade. And I have to give a shout out to Brian Glick at Chain.io, who kind of spurred this on, who, talked about after all of the trade court case information came out that his LinkedIn feed was all Pete Mento and Cindy Allen. So, we decided what a great thing. Let's just put us together and see what we have to say. So lots of things going on. I know you're busy, I'm busy. We're both in the consultancy advisory area now after careers in both customs brokerage and you at an importer, several importers. I think the first thing I want to ask and talk about, and just so everyone knows, Pete and I don't always agree on things, which really makes a great conversation because we have different perspectives and different opinions many times. So that's good. Court case. High level, will the money be refunded? Do you think it will be given back?
I think it's inevitable, but I don't think I know what the definition of inevitable is. I think it I think it there's some that appear to be more easy than others, like the ones that'll go through this CAPE contraption. I think that's gonna happen much sooner. I think that protests are something that the trade largely doesn't understand the complexity of doing them. And uh, if customs is forced to do a bunch of protests, I don't know, they've got the people. Sure, the system will pick up for part of that. What really terrifies me is we don't know yet about things past 180 days. Is customs going to be, are they going to get the CIT to stick to the current timeline? Because that would suck with a capital S, Cindy. I have clients where well over half of their eligible entries are out of the protest period. So are they going to go litigate those? And I'm not an attorney. I mean, that sounds like a really crappy, boring job being a trade attorney. But from speaking to trade attorneys, they've told me don't be shocked if that's 3 to 5 years before you see that come back. And what's it going to cost to do it? So I think it's inevitable that there will be refunds. I just think people need to temper their expectation on how much they're going to get back and when.
Yeah, I kind of agree on the timeline. I don't think it's going to be quick. The only thing that gives me any hope is that, the Supreme Court gave it to the appeals court, who said, CIT, you're it. You make the final decision. And when the judge first had the first hearing in this case, he said, these were collected unlawfully. It's against the law. So you're going to give it all back. So, my non-lawyer brain is like, okay, they're going to give it all back. They're going to give it all back in some way, shape, or form. They have to give it back because it was collected unlawfully. Now, like I've talked to a lot of trade attorneys and been on podcasts and webinars and meetings with them. And they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. There's no administrative mechanism to give finally liquidated past that 180 days for the finally liquidated refunds. And I'm like, doesn't the court have jurisdiction to give that refund back? Yes and no, but the court has to have a way to do that. So I think, to me, it's like uncharted territory. We are in uncharted territory because you have something that's unlawful and you have no administrative process that's going to address this. And I love the CAPE contraption. I'm going to call it that from now on. So I'm going to borrow that from you, the CAPE contraption. Um, I was hopeful that it was just going to be it. That's going to be the way the money gets
How
back.
great would that have been?
Yeah, yeah. And I still, I want to hear your thoughts, but I'll give my thoughts first on this. I really think it is going to be how they do it. I think they're going to unset all the liquidations, and I think they're just going to push them through because it's the only thing that makes sense. The court said in the first hearing, I don't want to hear all these cases, so I don't want them in the court. Protests don't flow as well as automatic refunds because they require CBP to do something on their end, and they require them to really process it in some way, shape, or form, either approve or deny. And protests don't fix the underlying entry summary. It's at the discretion of CBP. Now, CBP internally, I can tell you, having been there, does have instructions to update the 7501 information. And that's why if you get a protest that's actually approved, sometimes they'll reach out and say, hey, can you send me an updated 7501? Because they then have to put that in the system to update the ACE system, because there's no automatic mechanism to do that. So CAPE, to me, is, the thing that I liked the most about it was going to update the underlying entry summary. We need that. That's a system of record for customs. That absolutely has to be updated, or we're going to have a year's worth of entries that are incorrect, and every downstream process is going to be impacted by that. So I was kind of bolstered by that. I think I had a little hope, like, okay, this can work. What I really am concerned about, having been an ACE and having built a system, they're only 40% done with the part that's going to actually recalculate the duties. So that's going to be a big issue. But before we get into the software mechanism, what are your thoughts on CAPE? Because I think you have a somewhat different thought process.
So I've been thinking all morning. Like I got up at 4:30 this morning, had my protein shake, waddled on the treadmill. It's been a real fun day. And I know that people from customs are going to listen to this because they've told me. So here's how I'm going to start this. This is my ode in defense of CBP. That's what I'm calling this, right? An open letter to CBP. They don't care one way I shouldn't say they don't care. They don't want to hold this up. They don't want to not give people back the money. That's not what they're thinking. There's this misconception by the trade that customs is some ogre that lives on top of a mountain that comes down once a year to eat the youngest children of the village. That's not what they're doing, right? They'll do whatever they're told to do. They'll do the job, right? It's not like they have some beef with importers. If they're told to give the money back, they'll give the money back. The problem is they don't have the people, they don't have the money, they don't have the funding. What they don't want to do is be stuck in some quagmire of trying to do this. They want to do it if they're told to do it. They don't care one way or the other. They just don't want to get stuck in some process that doesn't work for the next 10 years. So when I read the stuff between Eaton and Lord, oh my God, it's like Biggie and Tupac, right? Watching those tweets go back with one another. I love it. I love it. So it's pretty clear to me from reading that stuff. I could be wrong. Eden wants the money to go back. And he's like, go figure this out. Go clean your room. I don't care how you do it. But when I walk in there, I want it clean. And Lord is coming back saying, well, I don't know where I'm going to put all this crap. And I have too many toys and I need fresh sheets. And can my sister help me? Because it's a lot more work. I haven't done this in like a year. So it's going to take a lot of work. I'm not getting the signal from customs that they don't want to do it. I'm getting the signal they don't know how to do it. There's no process that they can build that's easy to do. So I'm very concerned that customs doesn't do two things. Number one, extend liquidations or pause them, right? They could do that. From what I understand, they can pause it for up to a year on an importer by importer basis. They can do it 4 times. It's going to suck for your bond, but it's going to be great for them. It gives them more time. Importers don't want to hear that because they want their money now. And they're under this impression that when the entry liquidates and they put it through Cape, the money's going to magically show up in the ACH refund portal. I think that as much as it would bother us in the trade to have to wait for the money, I think it gives customs more time. And more time means a more accurate process and probably more efficient process. So we're not coming back to this. ACE doesn't work now. It's getting swamped. So what makes us think that Cape is going to be able to handle all this? Give them more time. Give them more time. So I agree with you. I hope it all goes through ACE. I hope I never have to do a protest. I hate them. I hate doing them. But if we have to, customs doesn't want it either. Stick to the administrative process of using this new system because we're going to need it again for 122s and some 301s. We can get to that later.
Yeah, I would say, to me, reading that transcript was like trade soap opera. It was like the newest version of a trade soap opera. It was really funny.
Falcon Crest CBP version.
Yeah, and it's, Brandon used to work for me at CBP. So yeah, he was on my team, and I knew he had a bright future. And I think that those ACE days where he was on the ACE team has come in handy in his new position trying to design this. But as far as the design goes, the way I read this from, my perspective, having, and having worked with software and having worked with the ACE system and, being on the broker side for so long, my take is that this is, Brandon Lord talked about a tab in the ACE portal to put all these files in. And I've heard lots of people say, oh, it's going to be the whole entry summary. You're going to have to do this. My take is that it's going to be as simple as they want it. It's going to be like entry numbers and importer of a record number. It's going to be really high level and simple. And that's going to be a tab that's accessed on the ACE portal. The ACE portal is a reporting tool. It's not necessarily interactive with the bigger ACE system. It's a reporting tool based on, business intelligence, and that's it. So that tab is going to take you to this new thing, and this new thing is going to grab all of the entry numbers, and then behind the scenes, the processing piece is going to actually go grab all the entry summaries from ACE into a new separate tool, because ACE can't handle this. And especially they can't change the programming in 45 days. So there is no way they can do that. So they're grabbing it and putting it in an external system, which I think is smart. It is the best way. In my opinion, the only way ACE goes forward is bolt-ons, because that ACE core system is old. It's 25 years old. It has so many limitations in it. And you're smiling because this is what we said about, the old ACS system before we had ACE. But ACE is even older than ACS. Just put it that way. It's older than ACS when it was replaced. So they can't really make major changes to the underlying ACE system. So the big ACE system. So they're building this tool separately, hopefully with AI, hopefully with some great partners, hopefully, getting all the bells and whistles out of that. But what it is an ABI tool. It's recalculating duty. And I know from before when they tried to build an ABI-like tool, it did not go well. It did not go well. And that's how we ended up with the ACE system that we have today. So I worry about that. I also worry, and if you're listening, CBP, we have resources. We can help you. We can test this. Reach out. They're kind of doing it in isolation, which is also one of the reasons ACE took so long, because they did a lot of things in isolation. And they tried to make decisions. And then, one of the reasons that I was brought in was to bring in the trade again and say, hey, help us. Let's figure this out. Let's do this together. So I'm hoping that they do that at some point. They reach out and say, hey, this is what we've built. Test it with us. Give us your expertise. Companies want to help. People want to help. They want to make sure this process works for everybody. I know I've had, lots of people call me in the software world and say, do you know anyone at ACE? We can help them. We won't charge them. We can help them do this because it's big and we want to make sure our systems are updated to do whatever. But I don't think external software is going to do a lot. So they're going to recalculate that duty. It's going to be sent back to ACE, and it's going to update the underlying ACE entry summary, which then will go through that normal liquidation, whether they speed it up or not. Love to get your opinion on that in a minute. It'll dump into ACE, it'll recalculate, it'll get that recalculated duty, it'll go through the liquidation process, and it'll go for the refund process. And that refund, then the new piece that they're building is bundling all the refunds together instead of doing one entry, one check. So love to hear one, if it's going to be, if liquidations are going to be advanced for anything not anything left, which is around 20 million of the 53 million a couple of weeks ago. Love to hear that and what your overall thoughts are.
So I know, Bill Lynch, Bill.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And I did a lot of work with Bill when he was at KPMG.
Yeah.
And I got to know Bill really well when I worked with Ed Quast and Dick Rossetti when I was at TradeOne. And I don't remember how many cocktails deep this conversation was, but it was many. And it was Ed and Dick and I. Kevin Fox was there. It was a bunch of old school, like knuckle dragging customs dudes who brought me up. and I remember Bill saying, Pete, when it comes to ACE, I would love to see if when it comes to ACE, Pete, perfect is the enemy of great, great is the enemy of good, and good is the enemy of functional. We just got to get to functional, and then we'll work our way back up. I think that happened, and then they forgot to go from functional to good, great, to perfect. ACE does, when you know how to use it, that's important. When you know how to get to your reports, you automate them, and you have them sent to you automatically, it rocks. But the import community doesn't invest the time to learn how to do that. So there's a part of that that's on us. We haven't put the time in to really understand it's like, hell, half the things that Microsoft Windows can do for me, I don't know what the hell it does. And that's on me for not understanding that. If it were up to me, if you and I could sit down with someone at CBP and say, what do you two think? I'd say, is there any way you could take an existing ACE report, like the 03 or the 02 or the 01, and add another column and have the importer put up whatever that, the difference in duties ought to be, and validate it. Say, this is a validated field from the import community. You don't have to rebuild all the back end. You're just putting some sort of a confirmation there. And then they do all the things you talked about in the background, which are probably mostly built. That would be the easiest way to get to functional. And then from there, it gets to great by combining all the stuff behind it for the entry summary. I don't know if that's realistic. I think it would be fantastic, but I don't know that it's realistic. And then, just like drawback, after they give the money back, then go and do all of your reviews and reviewing crap. Don't hold up the money to people who didn't mess around and did things right. Use your amazing AI tools that they have now. And I'm not being facetious. I believe that. Use the data science they have now to identify entries and importers who are messing around after the fact and go after them. But don't make life harder for people who are doing things right from the beginning. Give them back their money.
See what, and that would be great. That's like castle in the sky, vision, which is where a lot of the ACE functionality started and was never brought down to earth to actually, function. And I love that, that we just need something that functions. That's true.
Can I
But
ask
the
one more
ACE,
question, Cindy? Where
sure.
are they going to get the money for this? Right? All this
Um,
development's going to cost something. Is it in any budget anywhere?
yeah, they've gotten a lot of money for
Okay.
commercial enforcement purposes. If you look at the budget, some of the DHS budget, all the noise and news goes to ICE and, the other components of DHS. But quietly, CBP has gotten money for enforcement. It started with forced labor, and they went out and sourced all of this, great AI functionality and to determine, if forced labor was present in the supply chain. And once they did that, they started utilizing it for other areas of enforcement. And so they have money there and they have a continual stream of money to do that. So it's cheaper, much, much, much cheaper to do an external tool than it is to do changes to ACE, because anytime you touch ACE, it is, I have done presentations on ACE functionality and put up a picture of spaghetti and said, this is the current programming in ACE, because that's what it looks like. It's just so convoluted. And it anytime you have to take a piece of ACE down, you have to take the whole thing. You have to take the whole thing down. And then when you put it back in, there's all kinds of other connections that you maybe didn't see. It's just old. It's old. Now they have functionality that you pull out one little tiny component and it gets pulled out, and they fix that and they plug it back in. And that was the iterative development that we went to when I was there. Was this large scale programming can't be the future moving forward. So we based it on what the targeting system was doing, which was take out a piece, fix it, update it, put new things in it, and plug it back in. That's really what the newer versions of ACE are, but still the underlying entry summary is still the same.
Here's my follow up to that, Cindy. I feel like I'm interrupting you too much, but I don't know which AI the government's using now that we had our little tantrum in DC, but I don't know which one it is. But this is what I would challenge customs to do. Take the source code, whatever the hell that is for ACE, upload it to Claude or whatever the hell they're using, and saying, hey, if you could make this better, give me 10 things that you would do. Give me bullet points that would immediately impact it with the least amount of work. Now, they'll never let me on COAC ever. They know better. They know better than to have me on COAC. But that would be the first thing I would beg them to do. And I'd say, what would AI say they could do? And then the second question would be, how would this improve both the user experience and how would it improve the efficiency and the ability for customs to do their mission if I were to do these 10 things that you suggested? Let AI give them some guidance on that.
Yeah,
And then
I
I'll
think,
just give them money.
yeah, and I think even the trade could give them that. We have lists of things that we want to do, but I think a couple of things. Back to your post. Your let's update the ACE portal. The ACE portal isn't really built out for that. What you described is actually a post summary correction in bulk, which I didn't understand why they didn't just do that. Do a post summary correction in bulk, because what we're going to have to do in any way, shape, or form as a broker, we're going to have to take whatever CBP updates and put it back down into the broker system. We're going to have to query that somehow and get that information into the broker system. And the importers are going to have to understand on an entry by entry basis what those refunds look like for record keeping purposes.
Mhm.
So they're going to have to update their records. So to me, the fallback here is post summary corrections in some sort of bulk form, which is, the same exact process you described as take a spreadsheet, put all the entry summary data in it, update the duty, and then send it in bulk to CBP. And then they can still use their third little component to bundle all those checks together. Now, maybe this is kind of what they're doing. I don't know. And they're doing the post summary correction kind of on their own, because the importers pushed back and said, hey, you have all the information. I don't know why I have to do anything. And the brokers were like, we don't want to do 53 million post-summary corrections because we might get it wrong. And what if our duty calculation isn't right? And then what happens then, right? So there's liabilities and, manpower on within every different segment of the trade right now. So to me, that's kind of a big thing is, post-summary corrections is kind of the fallback. To me,
Well,
we
the government doesn't
we
want
could
to
get
do
a
the work.
refund.
Government doesn't want to do the work. Let us do the work. Push it back on the brokerage community. I mean,
Yeah, but
I think that, CargoWise could handle that kind of volume for
anyone
some,
can handle that kind of volume because
I
it's, we
I don't
do
know if
entries
you're
all the
right.
time. Well, we do 53 million. There's 75 million entries that are filed a year now on average. And those are all filed by ABI. And that software works. And we do post-summary corrections, hundreds of thousands of post-summary corrections. So this would be an increase. But to me, that's the fallback. CBP is trying to do it all themselves. Okay, great. Let them try. To me, we have a mechanism. They just have to open the post-summary correction timeline and liquidation status and ignore that. To me, that's and as far as the ACE goes, I love that story. Bill and Dick, oh my God, those guys are old school. You're right. And I remember when ACE was being built. I remember when I when I went in, Mary Jo Moyo
Yeah.
said, she got up in a COAC or a TSN meeting and said, it's like you are designing an airport and you went to the passengers and said, what do you need in a terminal? And they were like, oh, we need places to eat and places to shop. And we want all these bathrooms and we want really cool sitting areas. And we want to have all these things and free Wi-Fi and all the things. And you build out the specifications to this and you forgot to ask the airlines and the airplanes, how much space do you need to pull in an airplane? What kind of services do you need to actually support getting the people on the plane and flying safely? And what do you need from an airport operations and how much space do you need? And that was kind of an afterthought. And that's kind of a very good analogy for ACE as they went to the importers and said, what do you want? The importers didn't transmit entries to customs. The customs brokers did, but they didn't bring the customs brokers in until a few years later. And the airport was
Half built.
half built, and that was the portal. So they built the terminal before they built the damn
The gate.
the gates for the airplanes and all of the support services for the airplanes, and that was the underlying ACE. So it was kind of backwards the way they were doing it because they wanted to give the trade, the importers, what they wanted. And my friend Lou Salmonfink, who was in charge of ACE before I came on board, told me, he said, we were designing ACE to get rid of brokers. He outright said that. And I would just kind of shook my head and said, and how'd that go? You can't build ABI because you are looking at specifications for duty calculation and trade compliance. You don't do all the other things that help us produce an entry, and you don't even know what they are. So it was an eye-opening experience, but that was kind of my thought on ACE was, why it went kind of sideways a couple of different times for different reasons. And at the end, it was like, just make it work. And I think when I think about future ACE, just let me get this thought out. When I think about future ACE, I think it's not in ACE. It's not rebuilding ACE because ACE was a rebuilding of ACS because the core entry process is the same. You have to tell customs where something is coming from, how it's getting here, who's, in charge of that conveyance, what's on that conveyance, what country it's coming from, what the country of origin is, what those products are, what the country of origin of those products, what the classification is, what the duty rate is, who it's going to, who is going to receive those goods, who's buying those goods, who's selling those goods, and who manufactured it in some cases, and what the value is. That's it. Why redesign a core process? Because that isn't going to change. So all the other things, to me, just leave that in ACE. All the other things, sourcing back to component level information, the all of these different analysis tools, build that outside of ACE. Have it linked in because that core ACE system, it's good enough. Just everything else needs to come on the outside fringes of that. And I think that's what they're doing.
ACE was built as the environment, right? That
Yeah.
everything happened in. So make
Yeah.
it easier to bolt other things onto it. And I think
Yes.
that's where they're at. The last time I used this metaphor, I got in a lot of trouble because people were deeply offended. But
Okay,
as you
great.
can tell,
Yoo-hoo!
I don't learn from my past offenses. Customs house brokers are the cockroaches of logistics. Now, before people get deeply offended by that, right? We get no respect. People don't love us. For the most part, when we enter a room, they do everything they can to get us to get the hell out. We're misunderstood. Okay. But when the nuclear attack happens, guess what? We're still going to be here. We are resilient. We're not going anywhere. If you like us or you don't like us, we don't care. We're always going to be in the background doing everything. So you should find some way to respect us. We're not dying. So the idea that you're going to create a system that gets rid of us, no. Importers are terrified of law enforcement. Law enforcement doesn't want to deal with importers. I mean, that's what ACE is, the 1-800 number, talk to a chatbot of customs. Someone's got to be in the middle to manage all of that. And they've already said customs house brokers have passed your silly test. So you're the ones that get to have it. We're not going anywhere. The importance, particularly now during IEPA, I've never felt that we were more important than we are now. People have been starving for guidance, starving for it. And customs is in a tough place. They can't give guidance. They can upset their boss's boss and end up, giving advice they shouldn't give. Last year in New Orleans, I got really annoyed. I got aggravated, right? So, I'm a part-time resident of New Orleans, of the great city of New Orleans. I love it there. I ride in one of the biggest parades during Mardi Gras. I I shudder to think how many brain cells and bad decisions I have made destroyed in that town. When they had the CT meeting last year, Customs was actively avoiding conversations because they didn't want to go on record. They didn't want to be the one that said something stupid and got fired. And I get that, right? But we're about to have another one here in Dallas. Is it going to be the same thing where they're not going to interact with us? They're not going to talk to us about what's happening? Is Brandon going to go up there and basically speak from talking points and say, if anyone needs me, sorry, I'm going back to my hotel room. I'm going to raid the minibar and take my shoes off. Someone there needs to feel empowered, not to advocate for the trade. I don't think that's their job. That's our job. But someone should feel empowered at least to answer questions in a meaningful way. We're not getting that, and it frustrates the hell out of me, Cindy.
Yeah, and I want to, in support of my fellow colleagues, they have not been empowered to do that. And, the government right now, it was always, hierarchical and, very chain of command type of presence, because after all, it is a law enforcement agency. Even before DHS, it was still a law enforcement agency. But after DHS, formation, it became a world class law enforcement agency, the largest one in the world, actually. And they have taken the decision making from, not even the generals, the lieutenant generals, the colonels who used to make decisions or have an input into the decisions that were being made, and then elevating that into an informed decision. That isn't happening here. We have a very small group of individuals who are making all of the decisions at the White House. Whether you agree with their decisions or not, they are making the decisions at the White House, and those are coming down. And that is it. And if you have a different opinion, you are going to be moved out. And we've seen that happen again and again and again. And I feel for the civil servants, of which I was one, who want to do the right thing, know what the right thing is, and don't feel empowered to do the right thing. And if they take that power on themselves, it's going to be detrimental to their government career. And most government people, my friend Amy Magnus, who we both know, she was a CBP employee, or custom service employee, for 18 years. She was assistant port director at the end of her career. And she counseled me when I was at CBP. She's like, Cindy, the administrations will come and go. Leadership will come and go. She called it turtling. You just somewhat retreat into your shell, do what you're supposed to be doing, stay on your path, and this too will pass. So I think that that's one of the things that I think about is The government employees are trying to do that. They're trying to do what's right. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to, move forward. They're trying to get their job done and weather this storm. And hopefully, at some point they'll be able to peek out of their shell and say, great, now we can start running a little faster and making some decisions here. I can't tell you how many discussions I was a part of with leadership at CBP and leadership at DHS that informed a decision that Congress made, that informed a decision that, the administration made, because that was what was expected. You knew your area, you advised, you gave that information. That's simply not happening anymore. They are enforcers. It's top down. That's it, top down.
So
And
my hot take on that, Cindy, has been very unpopular, and I maybe we'll disagree on this. So my Mount Rushmore of customs people, I think all of them are dead. All right. Ed Quastick, Rossetti, Bill Inch, the list goes on and on, right? They all worked for customs.
yeah,
They worked for the Customs Service, which was part of Treasury.
yeah.
And I believe in my heart of hearts, and I never worked there. Hell, I wouldn't pass the drug screen back when I was in my 20s. But do you think it would make a demonstrable difference if we put them back under Treasury now that their job seems to be more akin to collection of revenue? Or do you think that their core mission would be somehow upended if that were the case?
I don't think moving them to Treasury in this administration will make a difference, because that decision-making tree is there regardless of what agency they are put in. So
Assume
I
a
don't.
rational actor is in Pennsylvania Avenue. Let's start with that.
Yeah, if in a normal environment, I kind of advocate. And there was, talk of this, was that they were going to make, the customs the external treasury service, if you remember that, and make it part of Treasury. And, DHS was not in favor of that, because they were going to lose 60,000 people, moving from their agency, and lose that, because, and in the government, your people are your power, because that's what dictates your budget and your money, as well as your mission. Yes. But they were not willing to lose 60,000 people. But I saw it as an opportunity. Hey, let's get trade back to a trade branch. Let's make trade front and center for the old Customs Service, because that's really what the Customs Service does, is it facilitates the lawful trade of the United States. And to me, bringing it back and giving it something more true to its core mission would be great. And if that means going over to the Treasury Service, so be it. Those are figureheads. They are agency heads. They're all about collecting the money. I think there would be different things to be concerned about, and different enforcement actions that we would have to adjust to. But right now, I can tell you, one of my mentors and one of the people I admire greatly, Alan Burson, who was the commissioner when I was first hired at CBP, he made a concerted effort to spend time with trade. And on the trade side of things and on the cargo side of things, he made a concerted effort to do that, because he understood how important that was. But his primary time suck was for Border Patrol and immigration enforcement and all of the things there. There were huge problems, and there were huge issues that needed to be solved. And every commissioner since DHS has had that same problem, that more and more and more of their job gets in attention and time and money, quite frankly, gets sucked into the border enforcement agency and side of things. I want to get us back to that true, let's talk about trade. Let's talk about the lawful trade. And if that, we have to bifurcate the transportation piece of that with the people, because it is a lawful trade of cargo and people. So if we have to separate that people thing to get our true customs service back, I'm all for it. I would love it. And I think that there's an opportunity now maybe to relook at that. But as I understand it, that's kind of died. Um,
Well, I'm making a public pronouncement that I think Cindy Allen for commissioner. We should be looking at the next election cycle, putting my full weight behind your nomination, whatever I need to do. I think that would work very, very well.
yeah, I don't know. That law enforcement side, I don't have a lot of experience there. The trade side,
Maybe
I'm
that's
all
what we
good.
need.
Yeah, maybe, maybe, maybe I let the generals handle the, the law enforcement side of that. Or maybe I could recruit my friend Tato and back to have that
I remember
controversial.
the heady days after 9/11 for a couple of years, actually more than a couple of years. It was quite a while. It really felt like a collaborative environment. It
Oh
honestly did.
yeah.
It
We
really
were
did.
all in it together. We were all in this together and really wanted to do the right thing. And people were happy to do that. And we're, here to protect the revenue and the compliance and the people of the United States. And I think that was a real urgency that we all felt. And, that's really the only reason Ace ended up being what it was, is because everyone came together. There were lots of twists and turns in there, but everyone came together to make it happen at the end. And,
Right.
everyone played their part. But
Right.
anyway, Pete, Uncle Pete, I think we're at time here. Thanks so much. We're gonna have to
Want to do
do
it
this
again?
again. Absolutely. We're gonna have the Pete and Cindy show. We'll do Simply Trade Pete and Cindy. So stay tuned, everyone, and send us your questions. What do you want to hear us talk about next? Because we didn't disagree as much as I thought we would on this show. So send us some controversial topics so we can really get into it. So
Are you trying to say that I wasn't as argumentative and difficult as you expected, Cindy?
yes, that was exactly what I was trying to say. You can see that I'm a little more eloquent in my delivery. That's why I'd be a good commissioner, I guess.
See? Cindy Allen, commissioner. I think that'd be great. Plus, I haven't known a commissioner in a long time, so that would be very good for me. I'm
Yeah.
coming up on 30 years. My license was issued in 1996. Can you believe that? I
Mine
am
was issued in 1990. 1990. So I'm
old
I'm
as dirt.
36 years in.
Yeah.
In
I've been
40
failing
40
upwards
years.
since 96. That's what I'm going to put on a t-shirt. Pete Mento,
Yeah.
failing upwards since 96.
I like that. That'll be our tagline. Feeling upwards. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.